Well, welcome back to Fire Talks, everybody. My name is Chris Brunette. I'm the Chief of Fire and Life Safety with the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control. On this episode of Fire Talks, I have joining me several members of our Building Codes branch here at the Division of Fire Prevention and Control. First off, we have Bill Bischof. He is the Building Codes branch chief for us. We also have Jon Weir. Jon is our unit chief for plan review for building codes. And then we have two plan reviewers, Jack Howard and Joellen Theil. Joellen doubles as our staff architect. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here today. To kick things off, I'm just going to have you all introduce yourselves. And when you introduce yourselves, just give us a little background on you, especially in regards to building codes enforcement. But make sure you tell our listeners about how you got into the profession. Tell us a little bit about your role with DFPC. And then maybe some of those things that are unique to you that might help out with what you do for us here at DFPC. So I'm going to start out with Bill Bischof, if you don't mind. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, Bill.
Well, thank you, Chris. And I don't mind talking about myself at all. To start out with, I served a 4-year apprenticeship in carpentry many years ago. And then did construction for a number of years. And then in 2000, I was offered a job as a building inspector. And when I took that job, I thought that that job was made for me, or I was made for that job. And it just fit in with all my experience in construction previous to that. And then from there, I went into plan review. And after I did plan review, I went to work for the state as the Western Slope inspector for the division, or actually for oil and public safety, doing building inspections on public school construction projects, which is our main focus in the building code branch in the Division of Fire Prevention and Control. And then they were asking for an acting building official, and I put my name in the hat and they picked me. And then apparently they didn't like the way I acted because they made me the building official, the building code branch chief. And so here I am today. And I guess I'll turn it over to Jon now.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So I have a long history of jobs that have all worked together to get me to where I am today. I have lots of years of experience in the fire service, which in and itself taught me an awful lot about building construction and things that should or shouldn't be done. I started off my career, aside from construction itself, I was offered a position as a rental housing inspector with a code agency back east. I took that job. I did that for 2 years. And during that time, a position came up for a building inspector. So I applied for that, got that position, did that for 2 more years. And then the plans examiner that did the majority of the commercial plans had retired. So they posted his job. I applied for his job, and I was the lucky candidate to be awarded that position. I did that for a total of 7 years with the local building department back east. And then I took a position at Penn State University where me and one other gentleman, we did all the plan reviews and many inspections for anything from hazardous material buildings to chemistry buildings to small tenant finishes. I was there for, again, about 7 years. And the state of Pennsylvania at that time instituted a statewide building code. So what I found out was, this other gentleman and myself, was that the state would be doing what we were doing. I was offered a position with the university doing something different. I had a lot of certifications I didn't want to just let lapse, and I wanted to use because I enjoyed what I was doing. So, and I'd always wanted to come to Colorado. So a position popped up at Westminster. I applied for that position, and I was the lucky recipient of that position there as a plans examiner. I was there 3.5 years. 2 of those were as a plan review supervisor. And then this position with the state came up, and I thought, it's a new program. It might be challenging. It might be a lot of fun. I applied, and I was one of the hired ones for the original crew for the building codes branch. Then it was a section of OPS, and have been with the state ever since. It's going on 19 years now, and I love what I do every single day. It's been a joy. I can't say that I work hard because every day I see something new and different, and it's a challenge, and I love it. I just love it. So that's kind of my background. Between my construction background and my fire service background, which is just between the two, I've learned a lot. I see a lot of things that we don't want to see in construction, and things we make sure get done correctly in construction. So that's my who I am.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jon. Just a wealth of background and experience. We're so glad you're part of our team. And just like we're glad that Jack and Joellen are part of our team. And so I'm going to kick it over to Joellen to tell us a little bit about herself.
Thank you, Chris. Wow, you missed all the wonderful things I was saying. Anyway, I was just letting Jon know that there was so much I learned about you that I was not aware of, and I appreciate you sharing all that. My career started back in the 80s. My original goal was to become an architect, which I did. It was my passion. After I moved to Colorado, I moved here to become a ski bum, and then got my first job in the Colorado architecture scene designing K through 12 schools. So I worked on K through 12 schools for about 10 years before I eventually moved to the state, where I worked for the Department of Corrections as a planner and code enforcement officer. I was involved in all areas of code enforcement, not just the design side, but also the submittal process to the various agencies to prove that we were compliant with any number of things like elevators and underground storage tanks, so on. I eventually looked for outside employment because I needed more time to care for my father, who was sick. And that's when I came across the Division of Fire Prevention Control position, which I applied for and fortunately received. I love working here. I've been here about 10 years, actually more than 10 years, about 11 years. And I absolutely love it. I want to step back. When I was an architect designing schools, I remember discovering codes and it showing me all the reasons I was drawing what I was drawing, which as a young architect, I didn't realize that a lot of the things that I was putting on paper were because the codes required them. And it was such an aha moment. For me, the most exciting thing about being in this position is how I get to develop all the relationships with the architects, especially the young ones, and work with them daily, educating them and learning from them. Thank you.
That's so good, Joellen. Thank you for sharing that. And I like how your background as an architect just augments everything you do as a plan reviewer for us and for our communities. So Jack, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yes, I'm Jack Howard, and I started in the construction industry. Well, pretty much I was born into it. My family had an electrical contracting company, and it was pretty much construction was what I knew growing up. And I mean, I started in the warehouse, learning material, and then as soon as I was old enough to wear tool bags, I started wiring townhomes, and then gradually got my electrical license once I, graduated high school. And then eventually I was moved into the office for estimating and project management. And then eventually I was helping run the company. And I did that for about 20 years. And then I had small children. And if you're working in construction, you know that you're working usually 6-7 days a week, a lot of hours. And I wanted to change it up a little bit and be present for my kids. So I applied for a few building positions or building inspector positions. And luckily I was hired on with DFPC. And it was actually a wonderful change. I mean, I found that, the DFPC was actually there to be a partner and really help with the construction process, which, coming from the construction background, I've worked with lots of different AHJs, and that was not always the scenario. So it's just been a, true blessing to come here and work. And with my construction background, I feel like it was a perfect fit that I was able to transition to quite easily. And, spending years studying plans to build projects and everything was a easy transition to go into plan review. And I just think everything kind of built up and brought me to where I am today. And it's been great. And I've been here, 6 years this month. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jack. It's, I gotta say one thing that I love so many things about our team, but one thing I truly love is the backgrounds, the just wealth of experience we have, and it's not just one model or mode. It's just having you four on, and you don't even represent half of our building codes branch, and it's no different with the rest of the team. Just everybody comes from a variety of backgrounds and brings this wealth of knowledge and experience with them. And we're able to apply those experiences to what we do here at the division and in the building codes branch. And it's just really cool to see that we're taking that and applying it. And your backgrounds are not dissimilar to the people that we're serving. And so how to empathize with them, and you understand what it's like to be on the other side of what we do. So I love hearing your backgrounds, and every time we talk, I learn more about you and you all, and just enjoy that. So with that, I'm going to bump back over to Bill, and I just was hoping that, Bill, maybe you could tell our listeners a little bit more about the building codes branch and what our responsibilities are there.
I will, and thank you again. So we are statutorily responsible for permitting any construction project that public school districts undertake. And so any project that they K through 12 school does, we have the jurisdictional responsibility to be the building department for them. We delegate that out to pre-qualified building departments when they ask to have that delegation issued to them, and then they just have to show that they have qualified people on staff, and then they become one of our help agencies in that. And so what we do is we get applications for permits from the school district. And then once the application is in the queue, in our plan review queue, one of our plan review staff, Jon, Joellen, or Jack, will take that out of the queue, typically in the order that it gets into the queue. And they will perform a plan review on that. And one of the things that we like to do is make sure that everybody is aware that we're just part of the team of putting this building together. It starts with the school district and them having funding, and then they get with a design professional team who then designs a building, and most of the time to the specifications that their client wants. And then it comes to us, and we make sure during plan review that the plans, when they leave, when a permit is issued, that can be built by the contractor and inspected by an inspector without any other additional information. And so we also work with other agencies across the state, and that could be the local fire department, the local planning department. We ask that they're always included in on any project, the local planning that is. And local fire department, if they have qualified people, will be performing fire permit and inspections on that. Otherwise, it'll come to our fire prevention branch if the local fire doesn't have qualified people. We also work with the state plumbing board, the state electrical board. We'll work with the division of housing. We work with oil and public safety in their conveyance department, their pressure vessel, which includes boilers or any water heater that exceeds 200,000 BTUs. It then falls over to oil and public safety. We work with the governor's energy office. There's a lot of people we work with. And while I'm talking about working with people, I want to ask Jon to tell us a little bit about how we work with our design professional partners.
Thanks, Bill. Absolutely. So one of the things we offer throughout the year as we have time is preliminary plan review meetings. We feel that these are very important to get the projects off on the right foot. We generally will look at them at varying stages of DD design. And we'll meet with you as many times as you feel that you would like to. We feel it's beneficial not just to us, but also for the design teams, because it helps to identify things in the design that may either be non-code compliant or potentially could create a non-compliant situation. We feel this is really important. We offer this service, and we hit a certain time of the year where we just have to shut off the meetings because we're just slammed with reviews. But when we can offer these, we really enjoy holding these meetings with our partners. And I've got to tell you, we have two of the best plan reviewers that I ever have met. Joellen is phenomenal. Jack is phenomenal. They both bring unique and interesting perspectives to their plan reviews, which I enjoy, because as a team, we correlate and collaborate on many, many code review items. And as a team, we try to be unified. And I think that by doing that as a plan review team, we become a better partner with our design community and others that may use our services. And I think it just builds a good relationship both within the division and outside of the division in the public sector. Now, my responsibilities, I'm the unit chief, which means I'm the one that tries to coordinate the plan review responsibilities. If someone gets overloaded with their workload, then I will jump in and I will try to help eliminate some of that. We all do plan reviews, so it can get very challenging. But moreover, I feel very blessed to be in the position I'm in, because I couldn't be working for three better people with Joelle and Jack and Bill especially as a boss. I just think we are a phenomenal team, and we enjoy what we do, and we try to provide the very best service that we possibly can. So as a unit chief, I just try to make sure that cohesion and collaboration continues. And again, with a super team, it's not hard at all.
Or comment to John, that do you hold meetings just with your team to ensure consistency on items that come up?
Yes, that's
I
a great
know-
question. We do. We meet a lot of times, 3 or 4 times a week, to share screens and discuss particular design features, and we review the code, and we just want to make sure that we're all looking at it the same way. What does the code say versus what is the design telling us? So it's really, really, really good, and it helps us again be a much more cohesive and top-notch team.
Jump in there, Joellen.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that one of my favorite things is when a designer challenges us on the code and says, "Hey, have you thought about it this way?" And we're always open to this, and then we'll have conversations amongst ourselves about this. Hey, are we looking at this correctly, or do we need to reevaluate our interpretation? And it's just a nice group to do that with, and it's nice to feel safe to bring up those questions when they arise.
And I think that is apparent in everything you all do. You know, John talked about cohesion and collaboration, and I think this team does it better than anyone. So just for those of you who are listening who don't know a lot about what we do and what this team does, because they are primarily looking at public schools, charter schools, institute charter schools, and local district colleges, that is a industry that works hard and fast throughout the year and then has the summers off. And so when do you think they want to do all their construction? Right during the summer. And so this team has to work quickly to review hundreds of plans every year during a short time frame. And they couldn't do that if they didn't work so closely together and collaborate like they do. So everything you're hearing this group talk about goes into that, knowing that they're going to have these a pile of plan reviews come in all at once and have to work through them quickly. And it's just inspiring to watch them work and go through that the way they do. So we've talked a lot about plan reviews and what the benefit of that is to our builders and designers. But I want to kind of hear more from Jack and Joellen about, what does that look like? I mean, we say plan review, but when we say plan review, kind of walk us through what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. And either one of you, just go ahead and jump in.
Well, I can just start with some of the very basics that help me get my head into a plan review. I sit down and I count the number of drawings in the index and compare them to the number of drawings that are submitted. The next step, also very basic, is I look to make sure the drawings are sealed, signed, and dated per the Board of Architect DORA rules. We also then look for all the required documents. Do we have the specs? Do we have the geotech report? Do we have the structural calcs? After I've determined, and then we of course have additional forms that I think we'll go into in more detail later. But after that, I jump into the plan review, the code analysis, and the code plan. And I would say about 25% of the time I spend looking at an entire set of documents is spent on that code analysis. in the code plan, because that's where we learn about what you are trying to do and how you are trying to comply with the code. And then from there, jump into the details. And I actually usually start with electrical and look at, do we have the exit signs that are required? And then I work back from electrical through mechanical, through structural, and then last I do structural and look at that in great detail. So that's the process I apply to each set I review.
Well, that's a lot. No, thank you for sharing that, Joellen. Jack, how about you? Do you have anything to add, or do you approach it in a different way?
It's very similar in the beginning. I typically start on the site and work my way into the building, and then I work just straight through the drawings. But I do start with the code plan, making sure everything's correct there, and then just confirming the documents. We do a lot of different mechanical reviews, and making sure that we have structural for any type of RTU replacement, and that whether that's a structural letter or just structural drawings showing that the building is structurally adequate for handling that load, and then all the way through the project just to make sure that it's compliant. And then our documentation that we're typically looking for, I'll bring it up now, is we want the 4030, which is for our delegated building inspectors, and the 4031 for special inspections. And then we'll want to make sure that it's filled out correctly per the statement of special inspections that the structural engineer provides, and possibly the architect if for ratings, for fire ratings. And then I'll let someone else add on.
Go ahead, Bill.
Jack, could you explain what happens when you find things that are not quite right on the plan, like they're not code compliant, or you have questions about them? What happens then?
Oh, absolutely. So we'll typically redline it, and I will put a note on there, and I also will provide the code section on why it's not code compliant, so that they can reference it and be able to correct it on the resubmittal. And then once I go through the entire set of drawings, I will usually append the corrections on the end of the drawing, so that the designer can just go through and see the list of items that I've redlined.
Is that by sheet number, Jack, that you do that? Or?
Well, when I append it, it's actually a separate form that Bluebeam provides, and it provides a link. So when the architect or designer scrolls down to that piece of paper or that document at the end of the drawings, they can just click on the red line or comment that I made, and it'll take them directly to that sheet.
It kind of brings up an interesting point that I'd like to hear Joellen's take on. Jack, you talked about when you find something wrong, you put the code site and explain why it's deficient or why it needs to be updated. That seems like an important point to me, especially for designers. And so, Joellen, from your experience and point of view as an architect, I would imagine that having those explanations in those code sites are important. Can you talk a little bit about that from that design point of view?
Certainly. The thing that I know from my experience when I was young in the career was that when you're going through architecture school, you're not educated about the code. That doesn't happen until you start with a firm. And depending on the firm you're working with and the organization of the firm, you may not be doing the code analysis at the beginning of the design. You may not start learning about the code for years. So I think it's very important to communicate to the designer what code section is needed and the why. I often put lengthy notes about the why, but I also see that the designers don't always understand my notes. So I think the the best thing to do in that case is to reach back out to the plan reviewer before you return your responses and say, hey, is this what you were trying to get me to understand? Or if I approach it like this, will it be code compliant? And sending us a snippet of the drawing area and the proposed resolution is welcome, and it will save time down the road when we're looking at the responses again.
And I think this is a case in point where this what makes our team so unique and so good. I spent a lot of years strictly on the code side of the book, but with Joellen's knowledge and past experience in the architectural field, now I can see the design side of it from an architect's or a designer's standpoint. And it really helps me understand a lot more of what goes into and the thinking behind sometimes the designs we see. So that knowledge that she's been able to share with us has really been invaluable to help me learn the other side of the code book. So I really am appreciative of that.
Well, and I think it goes a long way into our basic philosophy here at the division, in that, we have this responsibility for enforcement. And so, yes, if there's something wrong with a set of plans, or if we find something out of place with an inspection, we will mark that as deficient and notify the correct individuals of that. But we've always taken it a step further, and that's what you all are talking about, to educate on why it's important, and help with understanding of not only of what's deficient, but not necessarily how to fix it, but how to be aware of that for future design and construction projects. And I think that goes a long way in lasting compliance and understanding with everybody we work with. Bill, go ahead.
One of the things you brought up is that we are here to enforce the codes, but we prefer to think of it as we're here to administer the codes. And that is not only do we point out what the code says, but we try to point out the why behind the what to our clientele.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And I think, Joellen, you have something else to add here.
Yes, I wanted to add, you were mentioning about the future, that some of these comments, help with the future designs. And when I look at a code analysis, that's one of the things I'm looking at. I'm looking at, does this analysis show what you're doing today, which will then inform future architects when they're doing renovations or additions to this building, so that they know how the code was applied 20 years previously, which will then help them make better decisions when they're doing the future additions and renovations.
Very good point. Very interesting. Well, so we've kind of gone down this road of deficiencies, or what you see frequently as being able or being wrong on these plans. So I have a question for anybody, and please, anybody who wants to comment on this, jump in. But so when we're trying to get through a plan review and get to the point where we can issue a permit, what's the most common items that you're seeing that hold up plan review and hold up us being able to issue permits? I know it's a loaded question, but I'm interested in hearing what y'all think.
I'll throw a couple out there. A lot of times it's the incorrect code additions that were used for the design. A lot of times the code analysis itself has errors in it. Like as Joellen said, we spend a lot of time on the code analysis page, the life safety pages. And a lot of times that information in itself may be wrong. So I'll let someone else jump in here.
I'll jump in, John. In addition to the basic information like codes, the areas I see that I comment on the most have to do with number one, accessibility compliance, and number two, when you have rated construction, communicating that through your details, the listings, and the basic information on the drawings to make sure that it can be constructed per the requirements. And then the one piece of the puzzle that when everything has been submitted and is shown to be code compliant, that holds a lot of permits up, is submitting an accurate and comprehensive Form 4031 for special inspectors, which needs to list each individual special inspector used in what inspections that they are qualified to complete.
Boy, that sounds like a whole other topic that maybe we'll tackle on another one of these podcasts. But we are just about out of time today. For those of you who are just joining us, I've been talking with our building codes branch, specifically the plan review team from our building codes branch. They take a look at primarily our public schools, charter schools, institute charter schools, and local district colleges. They are the building code officials for all those, but they do expand out to other things. I just appreciate you all being on with me today. And before we close out, I'm just wondering if anybody has any closing words, closing comments, nuggets of truth that you want to share with anybody.
I just appreciate the opportunity, Chris, and I appreciate all the people we work with and the relationships we've developed with them.
Yeah, I echo Joellen's sentiments. We work with some really phenomenal design teams, and you know, it's just a pleasure.
Bill, go ahead.
And I just wanted to, again, state pretty much the same thing, is that we're just part of the team putting this whole project together for the school district or for the owner of the ultimate owner of the building. And the design team is part of it. Our plan review staff is part of it. The contractor is part of it, and our inspection team is also part of the whole puzzle, putting this building together. And we just have a small part in it. It's their project, and we just help them to make sure it's safe.
Very good. Well, Bill, John, Joellen, Jack, thank you all so much for joining me today on Fire Talks. It's been a pleasure talking with you as always. Anybody listening out there, thanks for listening. Hope you learned something, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Take care.